Tuscaloosa News, TideSports.com. Aaron Suttles, I hope you're doing well. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me.
Let me ask you, your take-home message as you're walking out of Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday afternoon.
I guess overall, two things to me. One, good luck to opposing offenses again this year because Alabama is I know a lot of people were hoping they'd take a step back with losing Reggie Ragland and Ashawn Robinson and some of those big guys, Cyrus Jones, but they again look really, really nasty to me on defense. So good luck opposing offenses in 2016. And two, I think the running back position is in good hands. I know people are going to turn their head sideways and look at me and say, Aaron, did you not see that Bo Scarborough didn't do much? Yeah, he's rushing against Alabama's defense, against an offensive line that didn't have Cam Robinson, that didn't have the starter from last year at right guard. It's still very much a unit in flux as they're trying to figure out the best five and where to put them. So, but I do think the development of Damian Harris, as I wrote a couple weeks ago, he may not be the top guy. He may not be the Bo Scarborough of this offense, but his development gives them a depth at running back that they sorely need, and I think that the running back position is in good hands so far with help on the way from B.J. Emmons and Joshua Jacobs this summer.
How can Nick Saban and Jeremy Pruitt get all these playmakers on the field and to keep those guys happy? I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys, quality, sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I think the key to that question, Ryan, is this team, it's yet to be determined, but this team has to have what last year's team had with the defensive line, and that's unselfishness. You know, it's very rare in an age where people are trying to get to the NFL and it's all about their stats. That was not an issue last year at all last year. Is they rotated 8 guys in on the defensive line when a lot of guys would probably rather not have come out of the game so they could continue to put film together for, potential NFL career. They're just going to have to be an unselfish unit. And when you got Tim Williams and Ryan Anderson and Rashawn Evans and the development of a player like Christian Miller, those are just, outside guys alone, even though I know Rashawn's moved inside. That could be an issue, but you got to do what's good for the team. And if what's good for the team is to rotate a lot of guys in to keep them fresh, to kind of counterbalance this age in which a lot of teams are running this hurry up, no huddle. If that's what you have to do, then you have to sacrifice a little bit of the ego and do what's best for the team.
Alabama had 52 sacks last year, led college football in that sack number. Can they go more than that this year?
Wow, that's a great question. Potentially, yes. And the reason is Tim Williams, I think, last year showed what he was just kind of scratched the surface of what he can do, in my opinion. The key to that, I think, is that can Tim be an every down linebacker rather than just a pass rush specialist? Can Jonathan Allen regain, come back to the form that he played at last year? He was second on the team in sacks. If those two guys, then yes, absolutely. It's scary to think about. I hadn't even pondered the question, but you can't look at Saturday's performance, and I know it was not against Cam Robinson. It was against Corin Curvin. You can't look at what Tim Williams did and not just kind of shrug your shoulders and go, wow. I mean, he's almost near unblockable.
Yeah, and he even told us in post-game opportunity that he'd even added a little bit of weight. I think he 256, 257. I may be wrong on that, but I'd have to go back and listen to the interview. But he even told us he had a little bit of weight, and I'm sure that's probably going to work. And he said he was shocked because he didn't lose a step. And that's what those guys are trying to do, add a little bit of weight, add a little bit of bulk. But still, that run-stopping ability, I guess we could ask Bo about that, 22 yards total.
Yeah, I felt bad for Bo. I think he had 9 carries for a total of 20 yards. And that's nothing to do with Bo. There was nowhere to go. He was getting the ball and either being stuffed at the hole or immediately having to run horizontally because there were no holes open for him. And that's a good sign. I know that, again, Nick Saban said they're not as deep on defense as they were last year, particularly up front. But the guys that are there that played without Jonathan Allen did not give Bo Scarborough on that offensive line anywhere to go. And this is Bo, who I believe had run for 224 yards and 4 touchdowns in the previous 2 scrimmages. So it looks again like they're just going to be a handful to deal with.
There is 5 things that we learned from Alabama spring practice. You can read that, Tidesports.com. Tidesports.com, Rivals network of websites. Alabama football beat reporter right now, and Alabama beat reporter Aaron Suttles right now inside the game. Now let's work to the quarterback position. Overall thoughts around these 4 quarterbacks?
I think it's about what we expected it to be. Listen, Nick Saban basically told the quarterbacks through the media that stop trying to make all these plays because all you're doing is making mistakes. Stop trying to make the spectacular play when an average play, even if it's throwing the ball out of bounds and punting, is better than throwing an interception. And I think that's what Cooper Bateman has taken to heart. He didn't look spectacular on Saturday, but he didn't make any huge mistakes. And that's what they need. And I know it doesn't excite a lot of people. People want to see offense up and down the field. That was never going to be the case at A-Day. It's just not. And the defense is already ahead of the offense anyway. So I think Cooper's put himself in a good position exiting spring. No one was going to win the job from spring practice. So that's the first thing we have to accept. So Cooper's put himself in a good position. But Ryan, like I've told you, I think we've discussed before, I was really impressed with Jalen Hurts, and I've heard great things about Jalen. I know he's a true freshman. It's very rare for a true freshman to come in and contribute at this level of football. But the poise that he played with, everyone's going to point to his athleticism, the way he can run the ball, and that's all true. I was more impressed with his poise. He
totally
didn't look the moment didn't overwhelm him when he comes out and there's 76,000 people in the stands. He should be going to his high school prom, getting ready to graduate high school. He's on campus already as a college student. I think guys get confidence in him when they see that. When they see a young guy like that come in and compete, and the moment's not too big for him, and they play with poise, I think his teammates are going to respond to that. Now, will Jalen play this year? Probably not. I don't know. It's just Nick Saban favors an experienced quarterback. But the fact that Jalen played as well as he did, moved the offense, didn't make any big mistakes, for a true freshman, I was really, really impressed with him. I don't want to label him the next big thing, but I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him at Alabama.
Let me ask you about Cooper Bateman, and we've talked about this before, but I think just watching him, do you think that he limits this offense? I mean, I'm talking about arm strength. I don't know. Maybe I'm just misreading this, but I see that he would limit Alabama's offense, and I'd just like to ask you your opinion.
Yeah, the thing with Alabama's offense is occasionally, there's 2 or 3 times a game they're going to ask you to make one of those throws. The majority of the offense otherwise is very much predicated on run and play-action passing and bootlegs, misdirection. To be quite honest with you, Ryan, I haven't seen enough of them. The plays that stick in my head are the really bad interception last year at Ole Miss, in the Ole Miss game. So it does possibly, without seeing him enough, I just don't know. Just seeing him in meaningful snaps where he's facing a first-team SEC defense, I don't know. It's possible.
Let me ask you, as we move forward, and just talking about this defensive side of the football, we know it's important. Defense is always important because if they can't score, they can't win. But in this current day in college football, we watched Alabama score 45 points to win a national championship. Defense is important, but you got to be able to score points. And right now, maybe I'm just a little bit over-concerned with these quarterbacks, but I know Lane Kiffin's here. We'll get some points on the board. But when you start staring at I just see a lot more potential in those bottom guys than I do the top guys, and maybe that's just me overreacting.
Yeah, to top end, I think, like I mentioned, I think Jalen Hurts could be a potential multi-year starter for Alabama, a dynamic multi-year starter for Alabama. But I'll also caution that, I was the guest media coach 2 years ago when Blake Sims was the quarterback at A-Day, and I left that game thinking Alabama's going to lose 3 games this year because they're not going to be able to move the football. And then, lo and behold, Lane Kiffin's first season, Amari Cooper has 1,700 yards receiving. Blake's the most efficient passer in the SEC and one of the most in the nation. And last year, what I saw from Jake Coker at A-Day, I'm like, there's no way. But there's something about the way Lane Kiffin can play call, the way he can set up plays. And don't forget, they didn't run anything, other than very vanilla routes on Saturday. this wide receiving unit, I think, is special. Calvin Ridley, our Darius Stewart, Robert Foster's back. Garrett Dieter will join the team. Cam Sims' emergence from injury last year. O.J. Howard. And then whatever running back you get out of the backfield. I think whoever the quarterback is, I think he's going to have a lot of targets to throw to because I think his defenses are going to have a hard time matching up with all that skill in the wide receiving position.